A female police officer catches a dad stealing bread for his kids. But the moment Officer Lauren Hayes steps into that dim corner store and sees the trembling man clutching a torn loaf, the entire world seems to freeze. The title becomes real in her hands. A dad stealing bread for his kids, a dad breaking the law, and a uniformed officer with the power to destroy or save his life. She calls out to him, her firm police voice echoing through the aisles. But the man turns slowly, revealing not the face of a criminal, but the hollow-eyed exhaustion of a father who has run out of choices. His name is Ethan Carter, and even before he speaks, Lauren can tell he hasn't eaten in days. But as she orders him to put the bread down, something unexpected flickers in her chest, a feeling she shouldn't have as an officer, a feeling that grows stronger when his two little kids peek nervously from the store entrance, their clothes damp from the cold and their lips trembling from hunger. Lauren should arrest him. That's what the law demands. A female police officer catches a dad stealing bread for his kids, and the entire community would expect her to handcuff him on the spot. But Ethan doesn't beg, he doesn't run, he doesn't fight. Instead, he does something so unforgettable, so deeply human, so painfully honest that Lauren's breath catches in her throat, and the badge on her chest suddenly feels heavier than it ever has before. But what exactly did Ethan do that stopped Lauren from arresting him? And why does Lauren feel like this moment is tied to a secret from her own past, one she has spent years trying to bury? And when their paths collide again, will the truth push them toward redemption or tear their lives apart? The bell above the small Brooklyn corner store gave a tired chime as Officer Lauren Hayes stepped inside, shaking off the December cold clinging to her uniform. Snow was falling harder now, melting into slush on the pavement outside, and the wind pushed through the door like it was chasing her. Lauren wasn't even supposed to be on this block tonight, but dispatch had sent a call about a petty theft in progress, and petty thefts rarely waited for anyone. Still, nothing about the voice on the radio hinted at the moment that would change everything for her. She saw him within seconds, slumped near the bread aisle, shoulders hunched, hands shaking around a loaf whose plastic wrapper had already torn. He was breathing like someone who had run far beyond his limit, yet he hadn't moved an inch. At first glance, he appeared to be in his early 30s, with dark hair matted against his forehead, and clothes so worn they looked as if they had survived a storm. His eyes, when he lifted them, weren't hard or reckless like the shoplifters Lauren had encountered in the past. They were hollow, exhausted, and unbelievably gentle beneath all that despair. "Sir, put the bread down," Lauren ordered, placing a steady but controlled hand near her holster. She didn't draw her weapon, didn't need to, but procedure demanded readiness. "Turn around slowly." The man swallowed hard and turned, his fingers never loosening their grip on the loaf. "Please," he whispered, and the word cracked in the air like something fragile. "Just please." Lauren had heard thousands of excuses from people trying to avoid arrest, but this wasn't an excuse. It was a plea that sounded carved out of grief. Before she could respond, two small shadows appeared by the store's fogged entrance. Two little kids, one around 6, one maybe 8, stood huddled together, their thin jackets no match for the winter outside. Their shoes were soaked. Their lips trembled, their eyes, wide and scared, darted from Lauren to the man holding the bread. "Daddy," the younger girl whispered. The man closed his eyes, the word hitting him like a punch he'd been bracing for. Lauren felt something shift inside her, something she didn't want to acknowledge. Her badge demanded impartiality. Her heart, however, felt the scene pressing into old wounds she'd covered long ago. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. "Ethan," he answered. "Ethan Carter." "And you were planning to walk out without paying?" "Yes." He didn't lie, didn't stutter, didn't try to blame anyone. He stood there holding stolen bread, but somehow managed to look like He was the one being held together by threads. The store clerk, a stout man with a loud voice and even louder complaints, burst from behind the counter pointing an accusing finger. "Arrest him! He's been hanging around here for 20 minutes acting suspicious. These people think they can just take whatever they want." Lauren raised a hand, silencing him with a calm firmness. "I'll handle this." Ethan straightened as if preparing for handcuffs. The kids pressed their palms against the glass, their worried faces ghostly in the reflection. Something inside Lauren twisted. A memory she tried to forget flickered. Herself at 9 years old, shivering outside a grocery store while her older brother tried to barter with the owner for expired milk. Their mother, trapped in addiction, had forgotten to come home that week. Hunger had a way of carving scars that never truly faded. "Why bread?" Lauren asked, though the answer was painfully obvious. "It was the cheapest thing here," Ethan murmured. "And they haven't eaten since yesterday morning." Lauren inhaled, steady but sharp. She should arrest him. Every protocol, every training session, every regulation said she should. But the law didn't see the way his hands trembled or the way his kids waited outside trying not to cry. The law didn't feel the pulse of desperation that hummed under the fluorescent lights. "Do you have a job?" she asked. "I did," Ethan said, jaw tight. "I was laid off 3 weeks ago. My wife passed last year. I'm doing everything I can, but it's not enough." Something surged behind his eyes then. Something Lauren would later replay over and over in her mind. He didn't beg for freedom. He didn't plead for mercy. He lifted the bread slightly, as though offering it to her, and whispered, "If taking me in means they get to eat, then please, just let them have this." Lauren's breath wavered. The store clerk scoffed loudly, but she ignored him. She was staring at a man breaking the law, yet holding more integrity in that moment than half the people she'd ever arrested. This was the unforgettable thing the hook hinted at. Not a dramatic escape, not a heated argument, but a father offering himself in exchange for his children's survival. A man willing to be cuffed if it meant his kids wouldn't go to sleep hungry again. And that broke something open in her. Lauren exhaled slowly, the weight of a choice pressing down on her badge and her conscience. She could already feel a familiar storm stirring inside her, the same one she'd spent years suppressing since the night her brother made a choice that saved her, but ruined him. A choice not unlike the one she was being asked to make now. "Ethan," she whispered, "don't move." Not because she was arresting him, but because the decision she was about to make would change both their lives in ways neither of them could see coming. Lauren didn't move for several seconds, keeping her eyes fixed on Ethan's trembling hands, as if watching a fragile world balance on the edge of collapse. The corner store felt too quiet, too bright, too painfully small for the decision she was about to make. Snowflakes drifted in through the half-open door where Ethan's children were still watching, their frightened eyes darting between their father and the officer in blue. Lauren's radio crackled against her shoulder, dispatch checking in, but she ignored it. Her pulse was louder than anything else. "Ethan," she said softly, "put the bread down, but don't step away from it." His brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face, but he followed her instruction. The torn loaf rested on the grimy linoleum floor between them, like a deciding stone in a ritual neither of them had rehearsed. The store clerk muttered under his breath, pacing and glaring as if his anger were building a case all its own. Lauren sensed his impatience, but she kept her focus on Ethan. "I need you to answer something truthfully," she said. "Do you have anyone, family, friends, who can help you and the kids right now?" Ethan shook his head. "I've tried. My parents passed away years ago. My wife's family. They cut ties after she died. They said grief wasn't an excuse for failing to keep a roof over our heads." His eyes darkened for a moment, a shadow of old humiliation passing through him. I'm working nights doing delivery when I can, but without a car." His voice broke and he swallowed hard, forcing the emotion back down. There was something about the way he spoke, quietly, without pride, without self-pity, that tightened something in Lauren's chest. It was the same helpless tone her brother used the night he turned 18, the night he walked into the freezing dark to find help because she was too sick to stand and their mother hadn't returned. She never saw him again after that night. He'd been arrested for breaking into a pharmacy trying to steal medicine, and prison swallowed him for 5 years. By the time he came out, he was a ghost in every way that mattered. Her brother's story had shaped her entire career. Law enforcement was where she believed she could keep someone else's life from slipping through cracks the way his had. But now, staring at Ethan Carter, she wondered whether she had simply been clinging to a rigid rule book to avoid confronting the truth. Sometimes justice wasn't the same as punishment. The clerk's voice snapped her back. "Officer, this is ridiculous. Arrest him already. My store isn't a charity." Lauren turned to him with a calm but steel-edged stare. "Sir, let me handle the situation." She took a slow breath, then crouched down and picked up the loaf. Ethan watched her hands, expecting handcuffs next. Instead, she walked to the register. "How much?" she asked the clerk. "What?" the clerk sputtered. "How much for the bread?" He blinked, thrown off balance. $3.99. She pulled $4 from her pocket, not from her police budget, not from any official procedure, but from her own wallet, and laid the bills on the counter. The clerk stared, still fuming but unsure how to protest when money was already in his hand. Lauren picked up the loaf again, turned, and walked toward Ethan, but she didn't hand it to him. Not yet. "Come with me," she said quietly. Ethan stiffened. "You're still arresting me?" "No," she said, shaking her head, "but I'm not letting you leave alone." She stepped outside, expecting him to follow, and he did, with slow, uncertain steps. His children immediately ran to him, clutching his legs, their small bodies shaking from the cold. Lauren took in their thin jackets, their threadbare gloves, the way the older boy kept trying to hide that he was crying. "What are their names?" she asked. "Lily," Ethan whispered, pointing to the little girl, "and Noah." Lauren crouched so she could meet their eye level. "Hi, Lily. Hi, Noah." Her voice softened in a way it rarely did on duty. "Are you hungry?" Lily nodded timidly, her curls bobbing beneath her knit cap. Noah just pressed his face into Ethan's coat. Lauren straightened, feeling the weight of the decision she had already made settling into her bones. She opened the back door of her patrol car, not the caged back seat meant for detainees, but the front passenger side. "Get in," she said. Ethan froze. "Officer Hayes, where are you taking us?" She hesitated for only a moment, but in that moment she felt her brother's voice echoing in her memory. Sometimes people don't need a cell. They need a chance. "You'll see," she said quietly, "but it's somewhere warm, somewhere safe. And no, this isn't an arrest." Ethan swallowed, torn between gratitude and disbelief. Lily climbed in first, then Noah. Ethan lingered for a moment, the cold wind whipping around his shoulders, before he finally met Lauren's eyes. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered. Lauren looked away, because answering would mean opening a door she had kept locked for too many years. "Because someone once helped me when they could have ruined my life," she said. "And because you did something unforgettable back there." She placed the bread in Noah's lap, then nodded toward the seat. "Get in, Ethan. You're not alone tonight." And as he did, Lauren could feel it, in the quiet tremble of the moment, in the heavy stillness of the winter air. This single choice was going to pull her into a storm she couldn't yet see. The patrol car heater hummed softly as the city passed by in a blur of slush, winter lights and muted storefronts closing for the night. In the passenger seat, Ethan sat stiffly, his hands cradling Lily's small fingers, while Noah leaned heavily against him, already drifting into an exhausted sleep, with the loaf of bread still in his lap. Lauren could feel their presence beside her like a quiet gravity, tugging at memories she'd spent half her life trying to bury. "Officer Hayes," Ethan finally said, voice low, "if you're taking us to Child Protective Services, please, let me say goodbye first." Lauren's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "I'm not taking you anywhere like that." "Then where?" She hesitated, wrestling with the line she was about to cross. Not a legal line, but a personal one. That line had kept her distant from nearly everyone she'd known. It was the line between duty and humanity, the same line her brother once crossed and paid for. "I'm taking you to a community shelter I work with," she said. "It's private, safe. They can give you food, a place to sleep, and help you get back on your feet, and I volunteer there sometimes." "You volunteer?" Ethan asked, surprised. "Yeah," she kept her eyes forward. "Civilians don't usually know. Officers aren't required to, but after some things that happened in my family, I felt like I owed it to the city." There was a silence filled with unspoken things. Snow fell heavier as they turned onto a quieter road, lined with leafless trees. A familiar ache pulsed through Lauren's chest, an ache that always appeared when the past leaned closer than she could ignore. "My brother," she said suddenly, surprising even herself. "He was arrested when I was a kid. Not because he was a bad person. He was trying to get medicine for me. Our mom wasn't around. He didn't have anyone to help him, and he thought breaking in was the only way." Ethan stared at her, a soft shock settling into his expression. "He went to prison for 5 years, she continued, voice tight. "He came out broken. The world moved on without him, and I promised myself I'd never let anyone else fall through the cracks like that. But sometimes the badge feels like it forces you to choose the law over your heart." "And tonight?" Ethan asked quietly. "Which one did you choose?" Lauren didn't answer. She couldn't. Not yet. She turned onto a narrow side street where a small brick building sat tucked between two old apartment complexes. A faded mural of children holding hands stretched across one wall, half covered by snow now. Lauren parked the cruiser and stepped out, the cold slicing across her cheeks like a blade. "This is it," she said, opening Ethan's door. "The Hearth Center." Ethan stepped out slowly, looking around as if unsure whether he was dreaming. Lily held onto Lauren's hand without hesitation, surprising both women, while Noah rubbed his eyes and whispered, "Is this our new home?" Lauren bent down, brushing a soft snowflake from his hair. "It's a place to rest. You'll be safe here tonight." Inside, the shelter glowed with warm light and the smell of vegetable soup drifting from a kitchen down the hall. Volunteers bustled quietly, preparing cots, organizing donated coats, folding blankets. A tall woman with a kind face named Marissa approached and smiled warmly when she saw Lauren. "You brought someone," Marissa said gently. "3 someones." "Yes," Lauren replied. "They need food and a place to stay. No paperwork tonight, just compassion." Marissa nodded. "Understood." Ethan looked overwhelmed, like someone who had spent so long drowning that breathing again felt unfamiliar. Noah and Lily clung to him, but they were already looking at the warm room with sleepy curiosity. "Come on," Marissa said softly. "Let me show you to a room." As they followed her, Lauren lingered behind, hands in her pockets, unsure whether she should stay or leave. Officers didn't normally remain after dropping someone off, and yet something inside her anchored her feet to the floor. Ethan paused at the doorway of their small temporary room. "Officer Hayes, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," she said. "Just take care of them." "I will, I promise." But just as she turned to go, Ethan said quietly, "You saved us tonight. The words hit deeper than he could know. Saved. It was the word she used to pray for when her brother sat behind cold bars and she waited alone in the dark. But before she could respond, Marissa approached her with a hesitant look. "Lauren, can I speak to you for a moment?" Lauren stepped aside. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Marissa lowered her voice. "We have limited space this week. Overflow numbers are high. We can keep them tonight, maybe tomorrow, but long term, I'm not sure." Lauren's stomach tightened. "They can't go back onto the street." "I know," Marissa said gently, "but unless something changes fast, they may have nowhere to go by the end of the week." Lauren exhaled slowly as a sharp truth settled inside her. Helping them wasn't over. Tonight was only the beginning. And fate, cruel, persistent fate, was pulling her further into Ethan's life, tying their stories together in ways she was no longer sure she could undo. Morning light crept slowly into the shelter, slipping through thin curtains and brushing over Lily's sleeping curls and Noah's small form bundled in blankets. Ethan sat on the edge of the cot, staring at his children with a mixture of relief and worry, tugging his features in opposite directions. They were safe, warm, fed, but safety that depended on a shelter's vacancy could disappear as quickly as it arrived. He had lived long enough on the margins to know hope was fragile. The door opened quietly and Lauren stepped inside. She was off duty now. No uniform, no badge, just a gray sweater, jeans, and an exhausted softness he hadn't seen before. He stood quickly, unsure whether he should smile or brace for bad news. "You came back," he said. "I couldn't just drop you here and pretend my job was done," she replied. "And besides, I needed to check on things." Noah stirred and blinked sleepily. Lily stretched her tiny arms toward Lauren, surprising them both again. Lauren knelt beside her, letting the little girl rest her head on her shoulder. "You sleep okay?" Lauren asked. Lily nodded. "It was warm." Warm, a simple word for what they'd been missing for so long. Ethan's voice grew heavier. "They told me last night, the shelter can only keep us a couple more days." Lauren nodded. Marissa had already briefed her. "I know, that's why I'm here." "Officer Hayes, Lauren, you've done more than enough. I don't want to pull you into our crisis." "You didn't pull me anywhere," Lauren said, standing and brushing off her jeans. "Life did, and I'm done letting good people drown when I have the power to help them stay afloat." He stared at her, confused but hopeful. She took a breath. "There's a community program I used to work with," she said. "It helps single parents find transitional housing and job placement. But the waiting list is long, months usually. I made some calls this morning." His jaw tensed. "And they're willing to move you up." Shock hit him like a gust of wind. "How? Why?" Lauren hesitated. Her hands fidgeted slightly, revealing nerves she rarely showed. "Because I asked. Because I pushed. Because someone once pushed for me, and it saved my life." She rarely spoke openly about her brother, but as she met Ethan's eyes, she knew he deserved to understand. "When my brother got out of prison, he had nothing," she said softly. "No job, no home, no future. The system didn't care if he succeeded or failed. One woman at a small re-entry nonprofit took a chance on him. She helped him find work, get therapy, rebuild his life. Without her, he would have ended up back on the streets, or worse." "What happened to him?" Ethan asked. Lauren swallowed. "He died 4 years ago, car accident, but before he did, he became someone he was proud of, and someone I was proud of too." A silence settled between them, gentle, human, full of unspoken gratitude. "Lauren," Ethan said quietly, "you didn't have to do any of this." "That's where you're wrong," she replied. "Last night when I caught you stealing bread, you didn't beg or run or curse. You offered to sacrifice yourself so your kids could eat. That's integrity. That's love. That's something this city needs more of, not less. Emotion tightened Ethan's throat. He turned away for a moment, running a hand over his face, as if holding back everything he didn't know how to express. But the program won't be instant, Lauren added. It'll take a couple days to process. Until then, you'll stay here, and I'll make sure nobody gets pushed out. How? He asked. By volunteering extra shifts, she said simply. By covering the hours the shelter doesn't have staff for. They'll keep you as long as I'm here. He stared at her, really stared, as though the weight of her kindness was almost too heavy to hold. Lily tugged on Lauren's sleeve again, and Lauren smiled at her, brushing back her hair gently. Ethan's voice finally escaped in a whisper. I don't know how to repay you. You already did, she said. Last night. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? You reminded me why I became an officer, Lauren said. Not to punish the desperate, not to fill cells, but to protect people who still have something worth fighting for. Her voice cracked at the end, only slightly, but it was enough. Ethan took a step closer, not invading her space, not crossing boundaries, just close enough for her to see his gratitude clearly. You didn't just save us, he said softly. You restored something in me I thought I'd lost. And you restored something in me, she replied. A knock on the door drew their attention. Marissa poked her head in. Lauren, the director wants to thank you herself. And we've already started Ethan's application. Things are moving quickly. Lauren nodded. Thank you. Ethan looked down at his children, fed, warm, safe, and then at Lauren again. This world takes so much, he said. But last night it didn't take everything, because you gave more back. Lauren smiled, small but real. Sometimes the unforgettable thing isn't what someone does for themselves. It's what they do for someone they've never met. Ethan exhaled shakily. So, what happens now? Lauren glanced at the snow melting on the shelter windows, at the light warming the room, at the family whose future was no longer collapsing but beginning again. Now, she said, now you start over and I walk with you until you can walk on your own. And for the first time in a long, long while, all three of them, Lauren, Ethan, and the two sleepy children curled together on the cot, felt something settle over them like a quiet miracle.